Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place where we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again by my co-host, Tocayos Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, dude, what's up? Barely awake after that game.
The snooze fest of a game, El Continental Clásico.
For real.
Well, man, as we've been kind of hyping up the game, we're here after the game and going to be doing our 6 things we learned. This episode is going to be 6 things we learned of La Selección Mexicana. 6 things. If you guys haven't checked out our series of 6 things we learned, basically 6 things we noticed and learned from the game, either positive, negative, or kind of neutral. So yeah, man, let's just get right into it with the first thing. Kind of before we I guess start with the first thing here. You hit formation on the nail there, man. Um, you kind of predicted in our preview episode that it's going to be a 5-3-2, which he did.
Hmm.
I think the only difference was that no one could have predicted Roberto de la Rosa was going to be forward because of Henry Martin's injury, and I think the only
Yes,
other one that you had was Charlie Rodriguez instead of Antuna. So everything else, you kind of got it perfect. So yeah, man, why don't we start off with a positive for this draw 1-1 between the USA and La Selección Mexicana?
for sure. So, the first positive that I want to note is the age average of this roster, specifically talking about the starting 11. So, as you mentioned, we did a great job almost getting all the players right. Uh, if you look at the starting 11, they have a 25.3 years of average, which is really good. It's been a while since we've seen an eltri team with this specific age or below the 29-year mark. Um,
Right.
I know that we have constantly complained about how eltri has to start this generational change in the team, and the likes of Memo Ochoa, HH, El Principito Guardado, and other players should be just essentially saying, "Hey, don't call me up anymore. It's time for the youngers, for the young lads to show up and rise to the challenge." Right. So, on top of that, and also that we didn't really like this roster that much. There's no denial that Diego Cocca is actually trying to carry on with the generational change. He called up a lot of young talent that, albeit they haven't had a chance to prove themselves with El Tri at any point in time, and then they might not be or a protagonist on their team right now. But hey, man, I mean, he is definitely heading to the right direction as far as I'm concerned with the young players.
Yeah, I mean these games though they mean nothing, and it's always important match against your bitter rival, right? And so giving them
Hmm.
that experience to play this type of match in this type of ambiente, and for a team that we've been crying for, get rid of the old farts, bring in the new guys. Granted, the new guy, the younger guys he brought in here, not to his not by his fault by any means, since this is
Hmm.
not a FIFA friendly. He wasn't able to bring all his European guys, so all these young guys are ligamx players. But I mean, still, I mean they're interesting prospects that make a solid foundation for the B team. Could maybe eventually move their way up. Some of them probably are A team material, like Acevedo, uh, and
Victor Guzman.
Henry Martin, yeah, Victor Guzman, Luis Chavez, but a good mixture of veterans and new guys at an appropriate. Sometimes you rush it and you put too many young guys and you disaster, right? No experience, and then you
Hmm.
you have the situation that happened in Tultri and El Mundial where they had too many old guys. So this was a nice mix of young and old, and like you said, we saw it in the age average of a pretty young age average of 25 and zero point 0.3 years. So good for Coca.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, from the young lads that played today, Victor Guzman had a really good game, with the exception of that mistake that he made for the USMNT goal. And Roberto de la Rosa was quite participative
Hmm.
at the top of the pitch. Unfortunately, he couldn't materialize a goal, but he was very active. So I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, good performance from those two guys for sure. Moving on to neutral, man. I know it's a
Hmm.
we have written down here the right back position, specifically Julian Araujo. What
Hmm.
from him today did you like? Did you not like? That kind of caused us to rank him as just neutral performance today.
So today I have two neutral things, and the first one that I want to touch base on is on this specific case of Julian Araujo, as you mentioned. Uh, I think this was a an okay performance for Julian Araujo. I call it as a neutral because I don't think there was like the balance that doesn't really goes to the positive side or the negative side at all. Um, I think there were very good things of him, like the fact that he was very eager and quick to make offensive breaks and drives from that right flank, sorry. And he was very eager to get into that last quarter of the pitch to do either crosses or do diagonals inside the box, which is great. So that proves to me that there's a lot of like I think we said on the that if there's one position in el tri that has enough depth, is the right back position. So Julián Araujo is essentially competing against the likes of Jorge Sanchez, Kevin Alvarez, um, and he knows that if he has a not a decent performance on these kind of games, he will definitely get relegated or not be given a chance to play with the A team, right? So I think
Right.
that was the good side of Julian Araujo in this game. The bad side, though, is as much as he was really quick to break in the offensive drives, that was also a problem with him, an issue, because more times that we would have preferred, he was so quick to break, but in that speed in that fast pace that he was trying to get, he was losing several balls to the opposition, and two of them actually, if I recall correctly, ended up in two actually very good counterattacks from the USMNT. One at the very beginning of the game where he loses the ball, and I think the ball bounces off from Acevedo and then strikes, I believe, Morris, not Jordan Morris's leg, and it just goes wide by very little. And then the second one, same thing. He tries to break, loses the ball, counterattack, and thankfully, I think it was Ferreira who, you know, even though he scored a goal today, he 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 thankfully isn't that good enough at finishing. So he missed that one, but that's the reason why I categorize Julian Araujo as one of the neutral things we learned in this game.
Yeah, wasn't a performance that won him any accolades or anybody's going to say, "Oh man, he did amazing." But I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was a safe performance, right? He wasn't really taking big risks. He had some good opportunities going up, like you said, but left some spaces in the back.
Hmm.
But as long as he is in Europe, not like he is now, even if he does have these mishaps every once in a while, he'll constantly be get called up. Um, and he'll be in the pool of the right backs for years
It's
to
a
come, as
no-brainer.
long as he's in
Yeah,
the,
I mean
yeah.
he definitely has to be in that pool of three players at least, between Kevin Alvarez, Jorge Sanchez, and him.
I agree. Moving on to something negative we saw here, man. You and I kind of thought this match was going to be a high scoring game. I think you said it was
Hmm.
going to be 3-2 to the US, or you said 3-3 maybe. I said 2-2, and it wasn't high scoring. The only reason we got a goal each team was because defensive errors. So
Yes.
I think the next negative we need to talk about definitely is the forwards, right? The lack of
Hmm.
strikers, not necessarily like we said. Roberto de la Rosa had a decent game, right? But
Yes.
having only brought two real forwards, that lack of strikers hurt El Tri.
Definitely. And I mean, this is not a new topic for us, right? It's not a new subject. We have discussed this in the past on previous episodes during the pod. And I think you and I agree that El Tri has a shortage of strikers, period. Um, right now, you only have two strikers that you can heavily rely on, which is Henry Martin and El Bebote. And, no one foresaw Henry Martin getting injured or being recalled by America not being able to play this game. And then, of course, Feyenoord was not going to release El Bebote because they're prepping up for the second leg of their Europa League
Right.
quarterfinal with Roma, and they're still fighting for clenching that title on the Eredivisie. So I don't blame them, but that leaves
Sure.
you with very minimal options, right? The fact that they had to call up El Gacelo from Toluca, who, don't get me wrong, I think he's a great prospect. He's still young, 3 goals this season, but that doesn't give you that many options. I'm
Right.
not too sure why he didn't call up Rogelio Funes Mori. I'm not sure if he's just trying to say that, the naturalizado card for later on, if he feels the pressure building up. But it's difficult to see Mexico display a good attacking proposition during the game if they don't have a strong presence of a striker. I do want to say that this game we saw a really good combination plays between Auriel Antuna, Luis Chavez, and Roberto de la Rosa that ended up in nice shots and one going off the post from Charlie Rodriguez. So that kind of diminishes the impact of not having a strong, big presence striker at the top, but I don't think De La Rosa is ready to handle that responsibility. So this is something that Diego Cocca needs to pay close attention to. If he's going to be calling on Roberto De La Rosa, he really needs to be essentially, talking with him day in day out, talking with Pachuca's coach team and assistants to ensure that Roberto De La Rosa gets the development he needs to be that big presence striker for Mexico.
Yeah. You know, we don't know why, like you said, Funes Mori wasn't called up. I don't know if it's because of the card of los naturalizados, or might just how we said Monterrey might was not willing to let him go and maybe risk injury.
Yeah,
Um, so to be fair to Diego Cocca, he wasn't left with much options here.
yeah.
And maybe De La Rosa wasn't his first choice striker up front. We all know it was Henry Martin.
Uh-huh.
But even then, I mean, if you look at ligamx, is it really those just three guys you have at your disposal? There has to be some, I say there has to be more
Well,
people, but I mean, there really isn't.
exactly. That's the thing is that you don't have that many. That your pool of Mexican striker isn't that big. You have El Mudo Aguirre from Santos. From the top of my head, you have Angel Sepúlveda from Querétaro. You have Martín Galván from Puebla. So the options aren't necessarily better from what you
Right.
called up today.
Yeah, I guess so. Um, Hopefully they're better in the June game against USA in the Nations League. So we'll see.
he, he's gonna have to call up Henry Martin and Bebote for that game.
Yeah,
There's no other way around this.
and that's going to be a game where all the European players are going to play for sure.
Yeah.
Um, all right, man. So let's go into another neutral here. What do you have next on the list?
So my second neutral, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be something that maybe not a lot of PPG fans are going to agree with me, but I think the fact that El Tri couldn't win today, that they tied with the USMNT, I don't think is a negative in here. I think it's actually a neutral, and you know should El Tri have won? Yes, definitely should have won. Was it a poor display from Diego Cocca and his team? I don't think so. I think it was, a decent game given the circumstances where he didn't have enough time to, call them up and properly train.
Right.
He didn't have a chance to actually call the players that he wanted to call because a lot of the clubs said no, or they requested to get less players called up because La Liga MX it's pretty much at the end of the season, at the regular season. So I mean, this doesn't give Diego Coca a lot of breathing room for the near future, but I think it also helps him a little bit to arrive into the next stage of Nations League with a calmer media environment, right? I don't think the pundits are going to hit him that hard as if he would have lost. As you and I said, this was a very high risk, low reward game for him. So the fact that he didn't lose is actually a good thing for him and for El Tri. Um, and again, I just want to finalize my point with saying by I think it was a good display from El Tri. Honestly, I mean they played defensively well.
Hmm.
Yes, they were lacking some attacking power, but they made it up for with some good combination. Uh, uh, Sorry, good combination plays,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean he did what he could with what he have. So to me, it's a neutral. I don't think it's a bad thing that he tied. Unfortunately, this prolongs the hegemony from USMNT over Mexico, with I think the last 4 games not having a win for Mexico. Uh, so that's the bad part. But the positive side is, we see some consistency.
Consistency, and Diego Cocca lives to fight another day.
Hmm.
Had it been a loss, he would have been completely on the chopping board. I think it,
Yes,
it helps that it was kind of a blessing that some of his players got recalled, like Henry Martin, just because they're going to go easy. The press is going to go easier on him, and understand
hmm,
that hey, he didn't even have his A team. He didn't even have his B team, most of it. So this was a last minute. I think he had like 2 days of entrenamientos with
to
these
prep.
guys.
Hmm.
So I mean, to get the result, yeah, I mean, it's not the result obviously he wanted, and the Mexican fans wanted of a win. But taking a draw in your first game against in the Clásico, and playing well, I think the midfield trio of Antuna, Sanchez, and Chavez were excellent. They
Positive,
dominated the
yeah.
midfield. Like we already talked about, Roberto de la Rosa was playing well. Alexis Vega, meh. I mean, he didn't do much.
Much,
But
yeah.
the midfield definitely, I think, was the star of the show for 3 today, and they were dominant in that midfield, especially the second half. Um, like you said, Charlie Rodriguez hit the post, and they had it there to win it. But yeah, I mean, Diego Cocca, decent performance. You live to fight another day, man. We'll see you in June. Um, all right, man. Our fifth item here. What's another negative that kind of realized and noticed from this match here?
Sure. So, I don't think this has to do a lot with the match actually, but like the context of it. As we have said throughout this episode of the podcast, one of the challenges that Diego Coca faced was the lack of player availability, or Liga MX clubs not willing to release their players. So one of the negatives that I see is Liga MX clubs' disposition to release players. I think when Diego Coca started as a coach, there was this message and sense of, yes, all Liga MX clubs are gonna fall or align with Diego Coca, support him, have his back, and release players when he wants to, because he wanted to have these mini ciclos where he calls a bunch of players from Liga MX, have them train so they get used to his game style and all that good stuff, right? So I think this shows that teams will essentially say no, and just
All
cater to
right,
their interest, as they should, because they don't really get any money from eltri,
right,
other than having like a vitrina for their players in an
right.
international stage. But the fact that America and Chivas recalled players due to injuries, even though they are scheduled to play during this weekend, so that doesn't make sense to me. Monterrey asking Doña Fede not to call that too many players and only releasing Victor Guzman and Jesus Gallardo, keeping Poncho Gonzalez, keeping Funes Mori, keeping Hector Moreno. Um, so I think that's a negative. It's how it's the I don't want to say that I feel for Diego Cocca, because he still hasn't won my heart just yet. And the fact that he left Tigres also puts a dent in my heart for him. But it's also it's not fair to criticize him if he has to do if he has to do a job with not the resources that he actually needs, or having access to all the resources that he knows he has, sorry, uh, and just being handled or uh, strained by Liga MX clubs, and their unwillingness to help him out.
Yeah, I mean it's more of the same. They were promised. The Okoga was promised apoyo support from the teams, and it's kind of gone back to how it was before. To be fair, like you said, we're coming up on La Liguilla, and these teams do not want to
Yeah.
let go of their players right before the playoffs start in Mexico, which is understandable, especially for a game like this. But you look on the other side, on the other team. Um, all the MLS squads are eager to let go of their players to go play with the US, because it gives them, like you said, that platform of international coverage, and just to be able to say, we have a player on our team that plays for or the national team. So differences
Mhm.
in across the border there between the two leagues, but yeah, I mean, negative for sure for the Diego Cocca there. As we always do, man, try to end it on a positive. I think there were a fair amount of positives here
Yeah.
today, but the main positive I think that we took away from this was the first of all his formation and how it was executed, right? His gameplay.
Mhm.
What you
Yeah,
notice?
definitely.
His variety in that game style.
Sure. So, you bring a really good point that I strongly feel is a positive. We've seen for these last three games, we have seen the Ococa play with two different formations, with a uh, I think it was what, a 4-3-2-1, and then a 5-3-2. This time around, he went again with the 5-3-2. I really like how he is implementing this style of game in the players. It's a formation that he knows really well from his time on Atlas, with his short tenure with on Tigres. I think he understands that that's going to be one of the best options that he has, just because he do have a good roster of defensive players and wings as well. So both sides, I would say more on the right side than the left, but both sides have players that can go up and down the field, that have decent cross technique, and they can also have they have shown displayed a good sense of long shot distance. So I think he's understanding that he can take advantage of that, of this specific formation. I think he also understands that he needs to ensure that if his strikers are not the best available right now, or if they're lacking, that gold powder, that he can always rely on them to be, a like a post for the balls to come in and create spaces. So I really like that over the last three games, we have seen a consistent style of play, a consistent formation that goes from a 5-3-2 to a 4-3-2-1, yeah, at times throughout the game. So I think this is a positive. It's been a while since we've seen an L3 team being able to adapt to what the opposition is trying to implement on the field.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've seen Selección Mexicana having the ability to go from one formation to another within the same
Hmm.
game. So to me, this is all good signs, man.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think he got the formation nailed today. He tactically had a better squad than the USA. I guess coach wise, tactical wise, he had more possession, more shots, more opportunities, and he controlled the midfield with this formation. And like you said, I mean, the ability to adapt to you know. Okay, so if the USA is playing this way, we'll change formation this way. If they decide to play this way, we have another formation. It's always a positive. So, um, yeah, kudos to him for adapting those two different formations, two really different, like different from. It's not like two kind of similar formations. They play differently, right? One is more of
Hmm.
we'll hold the ball in the center. And we'll control the game that way. The other is more of a hey, we'll play it on the wings and we'll try to control pace that way. So really two different formations that aren't really close to each other, and the way that he's gotten the team to kind of implement and adapt to them, positive to him for sure. um,
Yeah.
Again, let's see what he does in June. That's going to be the big test for him. um,
There's always that caveat, right?
yeah, that it's always a friendly. So now let's see it implemented in the actual match that matters.
Hmm.
um, Adrian, it's been fun, man. Funner game than we thought, even though it wasn't high scoring. It did have a lot of I guess the last 20, 25 minutes were good. Were a good
Yeah.
watch. The first half was a little boring, but always a pleasure being here with you, man. Before we leave, man, where can our listeners find us?
Man, if they want to see our pretty faces, they can find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. If they're just fine listening to our beautiful voices, they can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever they get their podcast on. And lastly, but not least, they can also find us at Puro Pinche Gol on Instagram and Twitter. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, and be sure to drop us a comment or send us a message. Let us know what you saw positive from Ed 3 today. What did you like? What didn't you like? Is Diego Cocca starting to win you guys over? Or are you going to kind of just like us waiting to the June match to really decide? We love to hear from y'all. And we love, conversing with you guys in the comments. So make sure y'all drop a comment there. Adrian, I'll see you on the USA 6 Things We Learned.
Take it easy, my friend.
See you, man.